Hey there, thanks for joining us at the Rabbit Hole of Research, where you'll learn a few facts that you can impress your friends with at a party. Hey, welcome back to the Rabbit Hole of Research down here in the basement studio.
We are setting it ablaze today, Joe.
Setting ablaze today.
Bye-ya!
Because you know what's coming. We're talking about the Human Torch, Johnny Storm. In our Fantastic Four series, we've already talked about invisibility. We've talked about the Thing. And now we're here talking about human spontaneous combustion.
Fire.
And here today, joining me, you got me, Joe. We've got Nick.
You got Nick.
We've got Georgia.
Hello, hello.
And we have a guest, a returning guest. I think
this
this is our first.
Wait, has he been on before?
First returning guest.
Shut up.
Yes, people might remember Dr. David Pincus. We'll let him introduce himself, but you might remember the episode on climate disaster and the turpentine farms. That was probably...
It was pretty good.
It was fun. It was a fun one.
It was as fun as climate disaster can be. But
Always a barrel of monkeys.
Dr. Pincus, will you want to give your...
Yeah, I'm David Pincus, assistant professor in molecular genetics at University of Chicago.
Soon to be associate.
Hopefully, any day now. Any day now, I'll be cashing them checks. Yeah, and I happen to be an expert on the heat shock response, which hopefully will come up at some point today.
Wait, if I recall correctly, on the last episode, you go, why am I on this episode again?
Well, this one was much clearer to me. Spontaneous combustion, and I happen to study how cells cope with thermal stress. So it's not that even a simpleton like me could make it out.
You're not surprised on this one. I was like, drop the anvil again on you. Like, why am I here? Oh, that's why. Yeah, we'll put a link to that episode in the show notes.
Nick and I are always here, and we don't have our science degrees. Right?
Never. I actually was going to start piggybacking off Joe's, be like, I'm a scientist by association.
Maybe we could get an honorary
Well, if they ever promote me, I'll give you all honorary degrees as soon as they let me.
I am all for it.
That's
I need an
awesome.
honorary degree or something.
Honorary. All right.
Or an honorarium.
Oh,
that's even better. Take the honorarium.
Yeah.
Definitely better.
Yeah, let's jump into this. You guys know how I do it. I have a definition.
Do you have a list today?
No, I thought you had a description.
I mean, all the above. But we're going to go. So
all D words.
We covered Fantastic Four, Marvel's First Family, 1961, Stan Lee, Jack Kirby. And so this is Johnny Storm. He is Sue's younger brother. Just go that. He can generate flames, fly, and surround himself with them. And so I wanted to start with what is combustion. And that's described as the moment when matter breaks its bonds, when oxygen, heat, and fuel collide, rapid oxidation, molecular breakdown, and a violent release of stored energy. This energy erupts in the form of flames, heat, and light. But in storytelling, fire is more than chemistry. It is a symbol of change, of rebellion, of passion, and destruction. And no one in the superhero canon embodies this better than Johnny Storm, the Human Torch. He doesn't wear a mask. He doesn't hide. He explodes with a single shout, flame on. He becomes pure fire, radiant, reckless, and often just barely in control. But fire is never just fire. It is the heat of adolescence, the illusion of ego, and the threat of catastrophe. It's Johnny's gift and his curse, a transformation that makes him powerful, but also volatile.
Very nice.
Thank you.
In short, he's hot.
I'm shocked.
He is hot.
Wait, okay.
And I want to say,
In all senses of the word.
I will say, go ahead.
Which character does Pedro Pascal play?
Mr. Fantastic.
We've said that.
Which we haven't gotten to yet.
Okay,
That's next
I was going to
episode.
say, this would be...
Spoiler alert, next episode.
Because he's hot, so maybe...
Yeah.
That is a great character. I'm not going to lie.
And I will say, out of probably all the shows that we've done and all the, hypotheticals, that I think this character is probably the most hand-wavium. I mean,
Really?
This is a tough one.
Yeah, I mean,
Come on, spontaneous combustion.
People do this all the
happens
time.
all the time.
yeah.
Don't
There's
you
been
read that
mysteries.
Visual Inquirer?
I have not in a while.
Did you hear about that story where the guy burned alive in his chair with nothing else around him on fire?
And
Come
it's
on.
I didn't read
usually
that.
everything like the torso and everything, but the hands and the
No,
feet don't.
did he walk away?
No, he died.
Okay,
He
well
was
that's
like a-
Part of the spontaneous
so let's
combustion.
say
A pile of ashes.
okay, let's say
He was a
let's say we
charred
can make
skeleton.
spontaneous combustion work. Johnny keeps living, right? I mean, so we got to explain. So we got a bunch of hand wavy of stuff going on here. So we have, and it's a rundown of his powers. I did a little bit, but he can spontaneously combust, set himself ablaze. All right, and then he lives when he turns it off just as fast.
And he's not burnt.
He's not burned,
No,
or harmed,
no scar tissue.
scarring. He can fly.
The fire. By the fire.
By the fire, which we'll get
It
into
like
that.
propels him.
Propels
Yeah.
I
him.
feel like once you can,
And then he can project the fire out,
Yeah.
kind of like a
Like a
firefighter.
flamethrower.
Like a flamethrower, exactly.
That's
So,
all
Okay.
sounds
Somatic
realistic to me.
advocacy.
so yeah, so that's and
So the plausibility is pretty much 0%.
I'm going to go yes. We're going to try. That's
Okay.
the goal.
well,
We'll
let's just condition it. Like, what's the probability even of at will spontaneous combustion?
Now,
Right? Like, let's set the bar low.
Because I've heard of spontaneous combustion, but I never thought it was at will.
yeah,
I
right.
suppose
But I think if
that's
you
true.
yeah, if you
So maybe he's adding energy. Maybe that's the thing. The will adds the energy, so it's not
Right.
spontaneous.
Oh,
So, I mean, if you have to think about it, then he would be creating a whole new set of organs, probably, to be able, in neurological control,
Or-
to project heat out. We think about a firefly or with luciferase. So
Sure.
they
So
kinda
some
glow and-
specialized,
right, gland
chemical
or-
reaction.
Exactly. You can think of a lot of different oxidizers.
like that stuff you put in your pockets in the cold, where you mix it together
That's
and
right,
then
yes,
your hands are
yes.
warm. Yeah.
yeah, the hot
So
hands.
you have to generate something, right? Because
I got the hot hands in the dice game.
and you have to generate because of oxygen, right? There's not enough oxygen in our atmosphere. It's about 21% that you would be able to have spontaneous flame in this way. So you probably would have to have some oxidant. We could think of a couple, maybe hydrogen peroxide, maybe a nitrous kind of compound, nitrate
Or
kind
a
of
heavy
compound.
metal, maybe like arsenic.
Maybe
might
something,
work.
right? I was thinking of
So what are
something
you
that
saying?
would kill us.
Are you
right?
saying?
And then we,
Yeah.
'cause
Are
we-
you saying that he'd have to put that on his skin
or
and then like,
secrete it in some way.
the plausibility of
He would
that.
have to develop some new kind of gland,
So it's like his sweat glands.
like sweat glands. Yes. Yes.
Except
Except
you're-
with flames.
Yes. Except that they would
Have,
converse.
like-
Right. They will converse.
They'd
And
have like
Would you
light-
imagine like there's jets, like pores where the flames are coming out, or
That might
like a
project it.
grill,
kind of like the
like a propane grill?
like a propane grill with
But,
a
okay.
loose hose at David's house.
in the
Oh.
You're
comic.
testing. The grill turns into an experiment.
Neat as the bomb.
Let's not test that.
Literally.
Okay. Now, in the comic book, he doesn't have like pores or anything.
Again,
I
soon,
mean,
yeah.
he doesn't have like
They really don't
visible.
cover that. Yeah,
I
they
mean,
don't
they
Do
really.
they
just cover him
the
in fire.
science at all?
Not that I know of. No.
Oh.
We have to.
Because
You have to.
what
breach-
is combusting, right? Like you need fuel
You
here.
need fuel. You need heat, and you need an oxygen.
Yeah, and
usually,
so,
you
the
need all three.
skin is presumably not the fuel.
I hope
But he
not, right?
can collect the
Right.
heat energies.
From others?
Yeah. So in an
Oh, he
issue
can. I
I
didn't know
read,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
he ended up heating up a lake to destroy a certain bacteria, and then was able to go back in and absorb it.
Cool it
Wow.
back down.
Now that
so,
is-
so we didn't kill
that is
all the.
They took the fish out first.
How'd they take the fit? Never mind.
Oh,
That's
okay.
a
That,
different.
that,
Well-
yeah.
the
Now
plot-
we're.
that
All right. So
plausibility
Reed
is
was
like,
gathering them with his hands, and then
He was gathering
Invisible
all the fish. All right,
women-
We haven't
woman
talked
was-
about Mr. Fantastica because that's pretty fantastical. But let's say that-
what? He was making nets with his fingers. Just
right. I can picture it. I can
Yeah.
picture it.
There's a couple things just to set the baseline. I think, David, you were headed this way a little bit. Is that at something around 41°C, 105 degrees Fahrenheit, you begin to get protein denaturation, cellular lipid bilayer degradation. So the cellular bilayer, that's what holds the stuff inside your cells, inside of cells.
I mean, even long before that, So that's even, we're at
That's
37 degrees.
That's
90.
the upper limit. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying, right?
Even when we have a fever, right? If
That's
we get
right.
a bad fever of above like 103, 104, the reason you're going to the hospital there is because you're actually not able, your proteins are starting to denature. And as the proteins go, so goes the function
That's right.
of the cell and cognition and all that stuff we like.
And if you want to know
So-
what happens to proteins at high heat, just imagine an egg, right? I mean, that's mostly protein that you're frying up, and it coagulates into like that.
Is this like one of those drug TSAs? Like,
Right.
This is your
imagine
brain.
Here's
This is your brain on
This
heat.
is
All
your superhero.
I know is that when I lived in Phoenix, sometimes you could fry an egg on the sidewalk.
You could
On the cement,
Yeah.
on the asphalt, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hot.
So there.
Well, tardigrades though.
That's
these,
right.
There are certain extremophiles. How many times do tardigrades come up? Pretty much every episode.
Not as many as you think,
But-
but this come up.
Yeah, these things, they actually evolved proteins that don't even have a shape so that they can survive. It's really primarily for desiccation, but you can take
Right,
these things
right.
up to 120 degrees, hotter than anything else on the planet, and they're still kicking.
Yep.
So,
Wow.
and so it is evolutionarily possible to recode the proteome of certain cells to make them extremely thermotolerant, heat resistant. But
Yeah.
a flame is really friggin' hot. Like
They are.
Fahrenheit 451, right? If it burns a book, it's gonna burn your
Right.
skin.
So I think then, with the glands, that it may have a couple of functions. One may be to provide the oxidant for the reaction, but you might also
the
have
propellant, yeah.
another layer of protective jelly or something that
well, it's also in his mouth too.
protect you. It's in his mouth.
Yes.
Have
It
you
is,
guys-
so,
I don't know anything.
in one of the-
honestly,
Of
the way
course.
I said it.
Come
It's in his
on,
mouth.
Well,
I mean-
in one of the cartoons, he
What
ended
version
up.
was you watching?
That was watching all the Fantastic Four ended up switching powers, where he ended up getting invisibility, and
Oh right,
he,
yeah, that was yes, that was the animated
Yes.
one, right? Okay, yep.
so he
Yeah.
heated up
Sue
a slice
has
of pizza,
flame, right.
and
He
he
ended
took it
up
out of
as
the microwave, and he goes, "Ow, the pizza hit me!"
Right.
And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
But you would have to.
And he's like, "Oh, that's because it's hot.
Yeah, this
Oh, because
protective. What that
It's
means?
protecting him from all
Well,
heat."
it might be that his
Also-
pain receptors are different.
but you
So
know,
that could be the other, because so
Ah.
You
you
know
may
how-
have a whole neurological kind of change when you do this. So,
Well-
so you have to affect that also, that you might perceive pain very differently than you would a normal person.
but do you remember the time that we were at the museum and then the stunt people were there?
The
and
what?
then the stunt people that work
Oh,
as
stunt! I heard stub. I'm like,
those stubby
stub
people.
The stuff people were here.
Georgia, please, you're gonna get us canceled again.
No, the stunt people, and they set themselves on fire. Like they put the stuff on, and
like
then
so,
they
yeah.
set
And they set them
themselves
on fire.
on.
But they have a lot of protective gear. Like they're not bare skin. So that's why I think that.
But that guy in
You
that
know.
show we watched was bare skin.
So you would have to
remember?
regenerate
You
this,
just
though,
put
right?
the
Because
stuff-
Right. Yes. I agree.
So there would-
Yeah.
there'd be some refractory period, or at least some limit, right, on the amount you could withstand,
Right,
if it were
right.
some type of protective layer.
Yes. Or you would have some rapid regeneration.
Unless it's other hand wavium like adamantium or something like
Yes.
that.
Where we're trying not to do. We already
Yeah.
hand wavy. We're trying to take it away.
Well, there was
Yeah.
that guy that. Oh, what's his name? David Blaine.
David Blaine. That's
And
right.
we watched that show recently.
You do?
And he set himself on fire and dived into the.
Right.
Remember?
Yes.
And there
But
was-
he coated himself with
Yeah,
some
but it was
material
bare
jelly that would help.
skin,
Right.
wasn't it?
Isn't that like what
Right.
you do with the spray? What's that? Like Axe body spray, and people used to set it on fire.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
You're trying to get some in New Jersey?
It's just like some homemade flamethrower. In
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
zombie movie when they're like, they're reaching on the counter and they got the lighter and a can of aerosol.
Yeah.
Yes,
but see,
yes,
that's
yes.
the opposite of protecting you. That makes
Is
it
that supposed
worse.
to protect?
That's like lighter fluid.
That's
right?
like lighter. Don't put lighter fluid on yourself.
Wait, are you sure?
No.
Let's not try. Well,
Do
that gets to the
not play
point
with
that
fire, period.
just
Unless you
knew-
really want to.
No.
no, please
No.
don't. Out here in the world.
No kids. No
Yes.
kids.
But a couple of things we touched on. I mean, you touched on the tardigrades, but there are also the archaea that live in the thermal vents, and so they also
Absolutely.
have specialized
I
kind of
didn't
cell
think of
biology.
them.
Extremophiles.
I have no
That's
clue
right.
what this is.
And I think to David's point,
And
the
what are
difference
those?
is,
Can you tell us what those are?
With a definition, please.
yeah, they're-
Thermus aquaticus is
Okay.
the most famous one, right? So the reason we're able to sequence the human genome or do any of the things that we do in modern molecular biology, amplifying genes, all this diagnosis for genetic disorders, it all comes from this extremophile called Thermus aquaticus, which is an organism that lives in one of these heat vents. And people realize that it had to be able to replicate its DNA at an extremely high temperature. So it can grow at almost boiling water and still divide. And so it has these proteins in it that have evolved to be rock solid. So they won't even denature under boiling conditions practically. So
Wow.
the cloning of this gene, what I mean by cloning is once people figured out what the sequence of what's called the DNA polymerase, it's the enzyme in the cells that copies the double helix and makes the copy for the daughter. They cloned that gene, found the sequence of that, and then you can put it in a batch of another organism like E. coli and then produce a bunch of it, a bucket load of this enzyme. And then you can just send it to all your friends all over the world. And now they can take their DNA and put it in a really high temperature and put it through a series of temperatures to allow this copying mechanism to occur. And so really the genomic revolution depends on an extremophile that was able to evolve to withstand a high temperature. Now, still, we're
Right.
solving a problem that's not exactly
Yes.
getting us there.
No, but
But
And this-
it is quite awesome.
and also this
right?
organism, it's what's called a prokaryote.
so is that like a
and it's
single cell?
a single cell, usually
Single
cell
cell,
organism.
yeah.
They are we're eukaryotes. That means in prokaryotes, we have a nucleus that contains our DNA. We have organelles like the mitochondria that provides power for our cell, ATP, energy. A prokaryote doesn't have those specialized structures. They are probably the simplest life forms. You
I
can argue if
love-
we throw viruses in there,
I
but
think
you know,
that name that's like a superhero name.
Yeah,
that
the
could be. That
Can
could
you
be.
say that again?
TAC. Yeah.
Well,
No,
no,
what
the-
was it? What are they called?
Extremophile.
The
Doesn't that
extremophile,
sound like
yes.
that should be something?
That's
Something, yeah.
There are many.
Something
Yes.
There are
Superhero, no.
Extremophile.
and there are many extremophiles. There's
Yeah.
organisms. You guys
So
are
not all of
geeking
them.
out on extremophiles.
Not all of them can get really hot. Just some of them.
Yeah. So this one's
That's
a
right. This
specific
one like it hot.
specific.
thermophile.
And they grow
Yes.
at thermal vents in the ocean.
You know what?
So
when you're
that's where they
talking
live.
about thermovents, I'm picturing like some vent in like a house. I don't know. And then,
Well,
Turn the air
like some,
conditioner off.
and then some scientist is just looking in their
It-
vent.
There's a thermophile in there.
Yes. Yes.
Get it out.
Remember these thermophiles that got to go down there and get them. So
Sorry.
no, that's fine. I mean,
It's
that's
the thermophile versus
yeah.
the germaphobe.
I mean, these are, and that's the thermophiles. They're just these kind of geothermically heated kind of vents that are on the ocean seafloor and where kind of tectonic plates would be. So you're releasing a lot of heat and gas there. So it's pretty hot. It's pretty extreme.
And just
hence
the
the
fact-
extreme. So that's
And just
It's like
the fact
only
that,
Mountain Dew
that's
down
right,
there.
yeah.
the fact that there's scientists that's what they study. I mean, do they have to be in the ocean? Like, I don't
Well,
know. Just it seems
yes.
so.
So the scientists that discovered this, right, never, they got funding for this back in, I think, the 70s or something. And this guy just went to go and dig cores and then catalog what was in there and put it away for later. And then these guys 30 years later, when they started making these little pieces of DNA, were like, it would be cool. Allegedly took LSD
That's right.
and had this
That's right.
vision of
This is my kind of science.
Driving down in California, like some
Highway
like,
1,
Highway
right?
That's right.
I
And he
think
was
so.
like-
Yeah.
He pulled over tripping, and because he
just
saw it
came
in
to
the
him.
off
He
the-
saw-
Oh my
he
God.
saw the reaction
Yeah, this is-
happening. That's
At least
the lore
this is
of
the
it. Yes, that's
apocryphal
right.
story.
Yes.
I think I don't know if it's real, but
I
Everybody's
so it said.
learned the same story, and it's been passed down
Yeah,
through
exactly.
generations.
it's like lore. It's scientist lore.
well, this guy won a Nobel Prize.
He
His
did
name's
win a
Terry
Nobel
Mullis.
Prize. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow,
Indeed.
that's crazy. That's
He did indeed.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you're saying we should be doing more LSD? Is that what you
Basically, that's the
takeaway
moral
from
of
No.
the story.
Dave, I don't know if you
No.
remember the magazine
Kids,
Biotechniques?
don't do that.
Yeah, of course
Was
I
that
know
still- all right.
biotechniques.
So somewhere I have one of the early issues, him talking about PCR, polymerase chain reaction.
Yeah, this thing's called
And
the polymerase
and that's the
PCR. Yeah.
reaction that you can take just a few fragments of DNA and or RNA, the instructions for life, and then you can replicate it, and then you can make many more copies in a tube in a matter of hours. And so that's
You
why
may remember in COVID, the gold standard test was the PCR test.
Right.
You could have an antigen test or a PCR test. Anyway,
that's
all the
that's
same
the
stuff.
PCR there. Yep, and that's where it comes
Yep.
from. Someone doing LSD on a drive home.
And
it
this
hits
is
you soon?
there's a main line from LSD to
get back-
COVID. Is
that's
now
right.
what we're saying.
And now we're making a line. If you do LSD, you can flame on probably. So
On it.
Go
As long as that LSD is fire.
yeah, that's right. Flame on. Don't try that at home, kids.
Another thing we should not do.
so. You said they discovered these extreme files.
Extreme
I can't even say it.
Yeah, that's extreme
They
files.
found that, and then it was 30 years later when he's like had
Yeah,
this
yeah.
aha moment.
Totally.
Right.
It was one scientist doing the sort of, scavenging for the future, not knowing necessarily what they were going to find, but cataloging it well, doing the naturalism and just getting a small grant and going out on a expedition thinking that there would be some type of interesting biology down in these very extreme conditions.
In
And
these
lo and behold,
holes. In
Down
these
the
Yeah.
holes.
In these
Down.
very hot holes.
it's
And that just goes to show. So does that original scientist that was doing more basic research, did he get involved in any kind of
he never
award?
got the Nobel Prize as far as I know.
No, I don't think he did.
Because
Yeah.
he
But
didn't
I
do
do
LSD.
believe, he didn't even get to do LSD.
Lame.
Or, I don't know. I don't know this man's life.
Yeah,
He
right.
might have,
I don't
but
know this
he
man's
Yeah,
life.
didn't
yeah.
document
Yeah.
it. Okay, so
And I
Did-
also don't remember his name, and I do remember Kerry Mullis's
That's
name.
right.
So
Yes.
anyway,
Yep.
this is
Because
a
the LSD
question.
story, that's why.
This is kind of going.
Every young scientist wants that. Like, you just go off and, I don't know, you
All of a
just wake
sudden,
up
you
and
have an epiphany.
you have some napkins with some great equation written on it, and you're like, how'd
Exactly.
this show up here?
Do we need to do this? Is this
We
a
need-
rabbit hole of research science experiment?
some field work.
Yeah.
That's right.
But I have a question. So,
Yeah, go for it.
do people like scientists doing really, really basic research ever win Nobel Prizes, or is it usually something more advanced? Do you know what I mean?
I think
Well-
all Nobel Prize winners were doing basic research. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think any. I can't think of. There may be somebody, but
But
they might have
there's
led to.
always other basic researchers that should also get the Nobel
Right.
Prize that are not included because they can only ever give it to 3 people, and any
Right.
given thing involves thousands, right?
Right,
folks,
right.
yeah.
Who knows?
Okay.
Like,
So-
who has their
even
hands on
those
it the
groups, their
most?
labs, like the labs they were in, they generated grad students, postdocs,
Exactly.
technicians that worked with them.
Right.
And so usually there's a web of kind of researchers who work, and then
Yep.
those are the 3 that might win the prize. But then you had many collaborators,
Right.
colleagues, who
Yeah.
they also participated in it. And I think the
It's
real
like the
thing,
Oscars.
Or it's,
like the Oscar, with the Nobel
it's like
Prize.
so many things, right?
I think the big thing
Yeah.
with the Nobel Prize is that it really shines a spotlight on particular areas of science, and then amplifies that message. And to do
Yeah.
that, you got to highlight a couple people and go, oh, these are the people that really helped push this technology. So cryo-EM 2017 at Nobel Prize was awarded, and then everyone jumped in and had to build out their EM facility. So it was this whole
Right.
kind of push, and it really was because of the Nobel Prize. And then people said, aha, this is really important. So I think you get
It
that kind
gives
of thing
that
there. Right,
validation.
Right.
But I think that that's why sometimes it's much harder to convince people about basic research.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why are you spending
there
your
was a-
time doing that?
There was a Nobel Prize for the temperature sensing receptors that, speaking of heat and cold,
Get us back in.
David
Topic,
Julius won the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago for how we detect vibrations that in our skin that actually tell us what temperature it is.
Right.
And how the capsaicin, the ingredient in chili peppers, it activates exactly the same receptors that actually detect heat. So you feel hot because it's the same signaling. So I always thought that was quite cool.
It'd be interesting if Johnny can eat really hot peppers. Like, what is because we talked about pain.
I feel like he
Like, can he
could.
just go? And he
Can he go
right,
ghost
that's right.
pepper?
Well, I mean,
Can he
considering
go,
his,
like the Tennessee Reaper?
I'm
and
sure.
stuff?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
If-
I wonder if that would be.
if
Good
he can't,
question.
he's faking it. Like he's like, no, this is fine. This is fine.
All right.
He's not going to admit it.
Yeah,
if he
you can't say
Right.
that. Like,
Yeah.
He's gonna have to suck it up. But eat the
Like-
hot pizza. I'm just wondering because the pain receptors are what is the true nature of the pain? Is it directly related to heat? And it's many versions of heat because one is, is the capsaicin heat receptors similar to other pain receptors, or are there different pathways?
So the TRP family of it's a part of a giant family of what's called ligand-gated ion channels. So they're different things that respond to various things in the environment and allow neurons to turn on and off directly by sensing the environment. So pain receptors some of them are in this class. Yeah, I do believe
Right.
that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So maybe we can get flames on. So we say
Flame on.
You can generate some sort of oxidant, maybe hydrogen peroxide or something like that. Our bodies already make that. So not a huge leap maybe to get there. You have some sort of glands so you can ooze it out.
And also the fat in your body would work as like a candle.
The fat in your body.
You think that's what's actually being burned?
But his internal organs stay intact.
I was
He
gonna
doesn't
say,
melt from the inside.
usually that's not a good
no,
thing.
No, you don't wanna, but no. You're right. Lipids, and fats do burn. I mean, that's
so
if
how many
you-
calories would he have to
if you
have?
well, we're going to get to some calories potentially, but I was going to touch on this
Yeah,
because
that's a good question.
if you do any staining or any cleaning, linseed oil, things like that, and if you read the
right.
can, you're supposed to take your rag and lay them out to dry, because if you take it and you ball it up, the lipids in there in the oils will start to oxidize, and you have a fuel
Like a
you can have
spontaneous
heat,
combustion.
and then you'll have fuel, and it will spontaneous combust.
Whoa.
And in grad school, we had a professor of mine. He wanted to demonstrate this. We were talking about these processes. So he took a rag, dipped it in linseed oil or tung oil, one of the oils, and balled it up and threw it in a beaker and left it on the table. He did the lecture. It's like an hour-long lecture. Nothing happens. We're like, oh, man, that was anticlimax. So we all leave. Next day, he comes in, and the beaker, it's like just ash. And I guess he set it in the hood safely. That was the best place, probably. Set it on a bench or somewhere, put it in the hood,
but still balled up.
and stuffed in there because he was disappointed, and then didn't flame on. And so at some time during the night, his postdoc called him and was like, there's a beaker in the hood on fire. Should I put it out? And he's like, yes, put it out. What are you
No, let it burn.
So yeah, then he brings the beaker the next day and he tells the story, and it was like, oh. And so yeah, that's a safety warning out there for anyone using any. Do not just ball the rags up and throw them in the corner of your garage.
But I
they
love
will-
doing that.
They will catch fire, or throw it into the dumpster and see what happens. But yeah, that's
Dumpster
essentially
fire.
There are mechanisms
Love
for
those.
biologicals to spontaneously combust. I think the issue here is that it's on command and it's fast. It's not
And
like
it doesn't
it
hurt
takes
him.
time. Like right, and it doesn't. That's the third thing. But
That's
the
probably the
timing.
most important thing.
I think it's fairly important if you're going to set yourself ablaze in some way. So that, or
Right,
I mean,
for it to not
but the other
hurt.
thing is maybe you have very fast skin regeneration. I mean, he's already setting himself on fire, so that's some ability. He got these abilities because he was bombarded with cosmic rays. So it activated all sorts of genes and things like that. And we talked about this genetics, your genome and your phenotype. And I was just going to say that often you don't so he could have already had advanced skin regeneration, let's say. And now
And so
he's
here's
added
the
this,
thing. I was thinking about what kind of mutations that could help, right? So I know for a fact that you could increase the heat shock response and increase the ability of the proteins in the cell to stay folded with just a few mutations. But then, the regeneration too, you would have to basically have a localized cancer stem cell population that just regenerates but never escapes the niche. You know what I mean? It's kind of it. Those are the two mutational ideas that I had. Yeah. Anyway,
that's when I was saying that if you have, at some level, if you are never tested, then you're unaware that you have some new phenotypic ability.
But then you happen to,
so maybe
but then
he got,
you happen to get
he got this power, and then that was the thing that it was kind of like the adamantium fusing to Wolverine's skeleton. It was because he had healing factor that allowed him to have the adamantium fused to a skeleton successfully. And so you had that. So if you didn't know you had that power, you could just accidentally get tested on and then wake up with this power, and you lived, and no one else, because that was a question in a couple episodes ago. It was like, how come no one's done tests to find a genetic pathway to recreate a Human Torch or a thing?
Is that the question that we had?
well, I mean, these days
No.
we would use PCR. And
That's right.
Oh, I thought you were going to say
sequence-
LSD.
No.
That's only
PCR
if
is
you're
code
a
Same,
for-
same.
That's only
It's
if you're a
code for LSD
scientist.
now.
If you're a scientist on a road trip.
That's right.
then
If you're a
you
scientist,
need-
you're not. No, you're
On
not.
it.
No, a PhD scientist. We're going to set some barriers here.
Yeah. That Venn diagram is a circle.
Damn, you got me, right? We're good, right? I can do this, right? For science.
Georgia was asking, because we had Jonathan Mayberry on, and towards the end of the episode, he had asked about how does Johnny stop from dehydrating.
Oh, that was
And
it.
I thought that was a good question, because when you're on fire, you are removing.
Well, this is where
water.
the tardigrade proteins might come in, right?
Right.
They're also desiccation tolerant. So it's got to
right.
be
That's
some
right.
combination of antifreeze type proteins that you develop. I don't know.
So
It seems
I had another idea. I don't know if you might think this one, but I was thinking about phase separation and biomolecular condensates. Condensates.
ooh, yeah.
I don't know if you
me
have
too.
any experience on that, but
Yeah, that's another thing I do.
yeah. So and just
And can you
Yeah,
give
I
us
was
a
gonna-
little bit of a?
so I was just going to say that these condensates form when proteins and or RNA undergo liquid phase separation, and so they reorganize themselves from this kind of liquid phase into a more dense membrane-free droplet inside the cell, presumably giving it some heat protection or protection against other stresses, heat shock, oxidative, nutrient deprivation, DNA damage, and
Absolutely.
things like that. So
Yeah,
that was
all
kind
the-
of,
Yeah,
Did I get that
if you
right?
can sort of
Did I
that's
get that
great.
first? Okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And
David's an
I-
expert on this, so that's why. I just heard him give
Well,
a lecture on this, so that's why.
that was incredible. But yeah, it's basically because the cell's made of stuff, and this stuff is all gooey. And when you change the anything of the temperature, the goo mixes in different ways, right? And will reorganize. It's like a lava lamp in there, basically.
Nice.
And as the lava lamp stays on longer, it gets hotter, and you see the more mixing, right? So it's the same type of idea that the interior of the cell, it's been 1 billion years that this thing's been evolving as the temperature goes up and down and up and down and over the seasons and over the latitudes. You just have a huge range. And then the extremophiles, right? We all have in our genes the memory of all of this fluctuation. And so that has made us super tough. And so you can imagine somewhere out there, there's some suite of genetic mutations that could confer an incredible amount of tolerance. Now, it's hard to imagine that being in a big ass person like a human, like an animal. Like I can see it in a cell or a small animal.
It could be a
I don't know.
cascade effect, right?
Not-
so we
not
could
a
have
Johnny.
these. So you could have these condensates that lock like kind of vulnerable enzymes and proteins into some sort of
Sure.
protective
You know what?
bubble that
And-
it kind of pauses
and
non-essential
casing,
functions,
yeah.
right? And then
This-
he's just kind of
Yeah.
so almost a. That's why I think you would have to start at the layers of the skin, and to protect
Yes.
everything in. So you might not have to have this across every cell type in your body. It
I
could
see what
just
you're
be
saying.
limited to maybe even some specialized new layers.
It's
of
almost
skin,
like a
right?
plasma TV screen. Yeah, you know, that's a liquid crystal display. Actually, that's the right
Yes,
metaphor.
there you go.
So what we're saying is we're moving out of the realm of hand wavium, right?
We're going to make it work.
Yeah,
That's
you know,
our
this is-
job,
I'm-
right?
I'm
making it
I'm
like-
coming a little bit round to the idea that
We're-
this is
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
more.
We're making this like
And so you could have, if you had,
1% plausible.
Yeah. I mean, this goes to like the skin episode. We ended there leading into this because that was where I started and started thinking about that. Is that you would now, if you say, well, take all the other organs out and body, how
Yeah.
do you protect everything inside, just on the
Yeah.
outside? And that would be so now you can have specialized glands with your oxidases or peroxidases in there, and some specialized organ generating that there. And then you have this
little
other kind of,
reaction,
right? You have
trap
these,
the heat so it goes.
and that can
right?
even be,
Yeah, I think
you can even form that as condensates until it's needed, right? So that's that rapid on and off. So you could actually go
Interesting.
turn on, because peroxidases will form these nice crystalline structures inside of cells. And so you could turn on and then you ooze out and then you could
You know what?
flame on.
If you had a little,
I really
little
wish you started off
mitochondria,
with
right?
ooze out, flame on.
Right.
if you recruit mitochondria over there, right, you could uncouple the mitochondria and generate localized heat.
That's right. Yes.
Right?
They get
Yeah.
sparked. The
this
spark
is
up.
what happens
Yeah, to
when
get
you-
the spark with
Yes.
the
Yes, yes,
mitochondria
yes.
uncoupler could be the spark.
Yes. That's where I was. Yeah. You could do that.
This is what happens when you get a couple scientists together.
Man, this is
I didn't start the fire, man.
This has legs.
All right. So maybe we can set ourselves on fire and not
Yeah.
die.
So would it be
Yeah.
safe to say that he doesn't get sick then, or no?
I think he's still gonna get sick.
Because I
Like
mean,
the
if
flu
you're
or-
raising the body temperature at
Oh.
the same time,
You're
Right,
basically
yes,
autoclaving
right,
yourself.
Right, you could, yeah. Maybe
So-
you're right.
Well,
We just
There
said
could be some downsides.
Alright.
The microbiome, right?
so. We just said that we were leaving all internal organs alone. So we were going to try to maintain physiological temperature, normal
But
human
your
physiological temperature.
body has to raise temp either way, no?
maybe just on the outside.
Which is still the inside.
Hold on,
No,
Well, I mean,
just
if you're
the outside.
I mean,
Yeah.
on
You're
LSD.
gonna have a. You're gonna have a. So you would have. Multi-
yeah, but like you do get fevers.
Right.
Yeah.
So hold on. I'm
You
saying
do
that
get-
for the flame on, we're gonna now have several specialized new layers of skin. One, a jelly layer to kind of insulate us. The jelly.
Yes,
jelly layer.
yes,
You're gonna have
yes. Continue.
you're gonna have the oozing layer that generates, and then you're gonna have maybe actually no, take that back. You would have the jelly layer. And then you would have some sort of other skin layer that might be a little more thermal resistant, can have this kind of,
Yes.
kind of sits on and off. And then I think you would have your ooze layer, and you would have that kind of on top there. And now you would have the ooze come through.
but it's also in his mouth as well, is what we.
Well, we just
You
said,
had-
hold on, you just said, only thing about the mouth was that the pain receptors are different. You didn't say fire shoots out the mouth.
No.
So
but
that means that his pain, we said also that his pain receptors might also be modified so that he doesn't really feel the pain
his
on your
temperature
skin.
would go up. So if it's all around your mouth, you're still having that pain receptors in there. You're not getting burnt every time you talk.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
And he
I
talks
think
all the time.
I think the other issue you brought up, and more than the mouth, is the eyeballs. I don't, you know, I don't. I
He
didn't
has some
figure that
gooey
out.
balls?
He probably has
What?
really.
You just always like gazoonga.
He probably has really dry eyes.
Right. Yes. Yes.
They're not
So
gooey?
I didn't think, or you have some sort of like a membrane that forms over the eyes.
Oh
And
yeah,
you're there. So there you go.
a
Okay.
heat
Yeah.
shield.
And you might have actually membranes in your nose and your mouth. You might have specialized, like,
Lids.
lids. Yes. Caps. An alternate breathing apparatus. So that
Yeah,
Yep.
this,
Right,
this,
the breathing-
ABAs.
yes.
this sounds so
Yep.
plausible.
Breathing is going to be difficult also. So I mean, I wonder if he can hold his breath for a long time. How long can he flame on? Like it's like indefinitely.
Well,
right? Yeah.
He can also fly, right? So
So flying is its own thing. I
What?
don't-
He's projecting it
but
out
you
like
could
iron.
propel. Yeah, you could propel yourself. Right?
like Iron Man.
All right. So
yeah.
I think that before we go to flying, we should talk about projecting the flame, because that's what you need to do. You got to do that before you can fly.
Like a
Yeah, I see.
flamethrower.
Right.
Which he can project an identical version of himself.
Oh man, come on!
He
No,
can.
I'm done. I'm going to throw that in the hand wavy.
He calls him Flamo.
Rip that magazine up. That comic up. Don't even bring it out. Yes. So I mean, yeah. So you would have to. The projection system here is what you need, and there are organisms that project. Like the bombardier beetle. I think they project some
Yeah.
an
I
exothermic.
forgot about the bombardier.
I mean, how did you forget that?
Exothermic kind of mix. I think it's like 100 degrees. I think it's like a little. It gives its enemies a little surprise. That's like you messing with me.
And the ladies.
And so you would need this a projectable flame, maybe gland. I just like we're going with glands. Like you would have to have some built in, almost like Spider-Man with his web gland.
What are you talking
Right.
about? Spider-Man uses web fluid.
Not all of them. That was in the MCU. They had the.
No, it wasn't in the MCU.
They did it. He goes, "What? That comes out of you?"
Oh,
and he goes, "There." Yep. Yeah.
I mean, I don't count him as in the MCU, but he's in the MCU now.
Once again,
Jace.
Everyone was confused by him.
What are some other like
Wait,
fictional
it comes out of you just there?
characters that set themselves on fire?
the Ghost Rider.
I was gonna say, I think
Yeah.
of Nicolas Cage, right?
Nick Cage. There it is.
Yeah, Nick
Nicolas
Cage.
Cage.
Element also goes on fire.
Element.
You have
yeah.
You have the.
You don't know who Element is. Look at your face when you said, "Oh yeah."
Stephen King's Firestarter.
Oh.
Drew Barrymore in the early 80s.
Yeah, that's
she
been
could
a
do.
really long time since I saw that, and
And
I
she
really
could project
enjoy that.
fire. Her thing, she didn't
And then
flame
just-
one, but she projected the fire.
And then
out,
everything would be on.
Well, that's once you start a little fire.
It
then
just
the big,
becomes
I was
a
like,
big
we didn't
fire.
start the fire though.
But it seemed like it just all of a sudden became really.
We didn't start.
Yeah, we know.
Okay. Moving on. So I
that
did have a list. I have a list of early fire controlling fictional characters pre Johnny Storm, 1961.
Ah, nice.
So I was going to go through a few of these. The Flame first appeared in Wonder World Comics #3.
Wasn't
in
he who
1939?
inspired Johnny?
I mean, I think all these kind of inspired. That was 1939. You had the Human Torch, Jim Hammond. That's the one right there. That was Marvel Comics #1, 1939.
Ooh.
Wow.
And he was a synthetic android who ignites into flames, flies, and projects fire. So he was an android.
I was
So
gonna
an
say an android.
That
could
that
get
makes
you-
sense.
That makes
yeah,
a lot
engineers.
more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had
Get around all the biocompatibility.
you had Prince Flame from Fiction House Planet Comics in
Prince
1940.
I thought he was just
At first, I thought you were talking about Prince.
Purple Rain. And so he had-
Purple Rain and
he
Purple
had-
Fire.
He had full body flame control, and he had fire projection. It was more a sci-fi, and we were talking about so many sci-fi in the golden age of comics, like these sci-fi-based comics. We had Fireman in Dynamic Comics #3, 1941, and he gains fire powers from exposure to a volcano. He can flame on and off at will, and he shoots flame and resists heat. So very similar to Johnny Storm. Volcano Man, 1941, Punch Comics #1. He also shoots fire, superheat body abilities, wears a costume to contain or direct the flames.
Like the guy in the stand that started all the.
Oh, right,
fire.
yes.
What was
I
he?
forget that guy's name.
Gasoline Man.
I know.
No.
Gas Man? No.
Gas man.
I don't know.
I don't want to be anywhere near someone named that.
That just came up. Yeah.
I know you read that so many
know.
times.
Trash Can Man.
Ooh,
Trash
trash
Can
can
Man,
man.
Trashy. Oh, trashy. Trash Can Man.
All right.
Turkey
Okay.
Cod.
Okay.
Yeah, and then there were a number of, you could imagine, of kind of mythological folks who did things.
Prometheus, right?
Prometheus. You know, you had Surtur in Norse mythology was the Ragnarok. You know, the giant who wields a flaming sword engulfs the world of in Ragnarok. So yeah, so you had Efret in Islamic mythology.
Where do dragons come in?
Dragons, yeah, right. I think also they breathe fire, so they have this ability. So so that got me thinking. That's why I went external with Johnny and trying to explain a way to hand wavium, because now you don't have to explain internal structures, because I think to David's point, you have a lot more organs and systems that would be much more responsive in heat damaging effects that may take a long time to recover. Our skin is very flexible and pliable, and so a little more resistant to damage.
Was that a hint at
things
the
like
next
that.
episode?
You mean the episode before this?
Dun dun dun.
Yeah, wait.
Flexible.
Oh,
Oh.
flexible. I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, it's so confusing. Skin, flexibility.
You gotta have flexibility.
I think, Joe, you could be the solo stove man.
The solo stuff. I don't want to be the solo stuff.
Actually,
That's
what you
another
are
source
in
of
my.
heat.
That's what you are in my phone now. Solo stove.
Am I the solo stove man?
Solo stove, man.
So yeah, thinking about projection, let's go back, because I don't know if we solved that problem. I guess we had the gland, and you can shoot out the gland.
Is that like the goo?
The goo.
No, the
Yeah.
ooze.
The goo
Ooze,
in
yeah.
the lava lamp.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
To David's point, yeah. That's it. Yeah,
No,
but
Wait, what?
I
Why
think
would
you
that
need
be
a controlling
right?
gland to actually focus
Yeah.
the fire out.
That
so,
only-
How
Goes
exactly?
to
You
the
need a
right.
you need a way to focus. Once you
Which
can
is a
focus,
light.
I feel like release is a little easier.
yes, because a lot of
'Cause that's-
organisms release stuff, like we talked about the Barmad.
Yeah,
the
like
Bombardier
the
beetle.
dissipation. So once
Right.
you have a channeling, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
you generate the heat, and then you localize it, and then
There you go.
and that can be done. I think that's downhill.
Yeah, once you
That's
once you
downhill.
have the initial flames over your body, squirting out the
Once you have the scaffold,
the squirting out your
Oh, stop saying
glandular goo.
I know. There's so
Yeah.
many. There's so many.
it's just like another appendage.
There's so many icky words.
I think the only other thing, and so Johnny's neuro kind of biology would be interesting, because we made all these modifications to skin and glands.
Yeah, right.
But the control
how do you
of all
control
this,
it?
that's right. And
Yeah.
signaling and things like that to actually have that. And if he loses this pain receptors, that already suggests that there's been some neurological reworking in
Some
his
different
body.
type of feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
Loops that would happen, turn on, turn off. The thing I haven't is quenching the fire. Is that as simple as stopping the release? I'm not going to say oozing, or the release of the
Yeah, right. Or
oxidants.
do you need an active shutdown? I
Release-
think you could.
I think release is just as bad.
It's
A
the moment
closing
before
of the
release.
channels.
Yes.
A closing of the
There
channels.
you go.
Right, yes,
That's better.
yes. The closing
I-
of the channels.
He's finished.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, that's, yeah. And that fuel source, that could be
Did
lipid,
we
that could be.
figure out the dehydration thing?
Well, we talked about the protective jelly layer,
Oh, okay.
gel layer
Okay.
in there. We talked about the condensates that might help with dehydration. So as you have these stress events, you could be protecting, instead of having the proteins just denature, which means they just unfold. So proteins have usually a complex folding structure, and that's what allows them to work and do specific work. When you denature, you're just stretching that back out, and then it can't work any longer.
And then
And the other
is that
thing-
when people die?
People will die if they're proteins in nature. Yes. That's generally what happens.
People.
Think about the frying egg. That's or a
You
boiling
heard
egg.
it
either
here
way, that's right.
first.
Yes. Your
Do
proteins
not
in nature.
let your
yes.
proteins
We're
denature.
all gonna die.
Yes.
Defold.
Protein-
You can't be defolding yourself.
when they fold, and usually they can't fold back in the same order. So you might go, what happens? You take the temperature down. So they actually denature, and they start to kind of bundle up like spaghetti into a clump, and yeah, there's problems. So
And you get ALS or something.
yeah, you get something bad. Let's don't do that, people.
Don't.
Yeah, so I think that's
Maybe we should list all the things you shouldn't do.
I just have a list
Set
of things
yourself
I'm
on fire.
going to
There's
do.
been a lot of don'ts here.
Yeah, right.
Can end on some
Yes.
do's.
So,
Yeah.
Nick, what do you got? You said you had some hard hitting research coming in.
Did I?
You
I
did.
thought we were already going over that.
Hmm.
Well, I think he
Do you-
brought a lot in as far as like some of-
glands and extremophiles?
I have nothing on that stuff.
No, he brought up the whole mouth thing.
Oh, the
He
mouth,
brought
right,
out
yes, that's the other one.
like the setting the water on fire and then taking the heat.
You're right. And so the water on fire, how big was this lake?
A pond.
It was like a small pond, like a backyard pond.
I mean, I don't know what a backyard pond is. What is a backyard pond? Joe, you don't have a pond in your backyard.
Yeah,
Was it yay big?
Was he like a little pot of water?
I mean, I can swim from one end to the other.
Mr. Fantastic scooped out the few koi goldfish.
Are we talking Arizona golf course or New England golf course?
I don't know where either of those are, so I'm going to go New England. I feel like they don't have a lot of water there.
Oh, yeah, I should have said something swampy.
Arizona doesn't have a lot of water either.
If you're going by not a lot of water, you would go Arizona.
I don't know, man.
It's a dry heat.
Yeah, it's dry.
I'm not from Arizona, guys. George is over here trying to fry eggs on sidewalks in Arizona.
The thing with Johnny, did he have is his outfit specially designed?
Yes.
Is that giving him some also protection potentially?
It keeps
Unstable
him from
fabrics.
being nude
Unstable,
every time he lights up.
He's
It's
in
so
the
he
nude?
doesn't have the
He comes
fashion.
out buck naked?
No, it saves him from
Oh,
being.
I see.
Yeah,
I
it's
thought he's just like flame on and he comes out.
It's so he doesn't have a fashion mishap like
Hey.
The
Janet
first,
Jackson.
until the fabric was made, he would just stroll out, flame
Pretty
on,
much,
and
yeah.
then he's just, you're like, whoa, that guy is buck naked flying around on fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you got it, flaunt it.
What
Yeah,
about his
that's right.
hair?
Hair, that's right.
His hair doesn't burn off.
His hair does not burn off, which I think it would. It would be a nice fuel source. Yeah, I think that's a mistake.
Oh,
on
yeah.
The commie. He should be shaved. He should have a shaved head.
I mean, he even
Yeah.
has a mustache
Or
now.
Yeah.
have the hair flaming.
But then it burns off.
We
Yes.
already established that doesn't happen to him.
His eyebrows,
He
his
hold-
hair,
hold-
body hair.
Unless it's made of a substance that helps to dissipate heat.
But then biological substance?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
some keratin derivative.
Or something, yeah, or some other protein structure. Is his hair fluffy and light, or is it coarse and brittle?
Does it conduct?
You know,
No, yeah.
this is on the pages of
Yeah.
a comic.
Yeah, so
I
like,
have no.
You're looking at this like he's an expert on that.
You know, I don't know.
In the comic, he might have fluffed his hair like like a model, we have video. You can
Like
see him
flock
doing
of
it.
seagulls?
That's right. Yeah. Like Bobby.
He throws his hair back. I don't know, man. He's got a mustache.
Yeah.
That seems
Yeah. Hair.
problematic.
I think he should be hairless. Like we're gonna do this right. He should be hairless.
Yeah.
No
Full
eyebrows.
alopecia.
Nothing. That's right.
So you have to glue some on every time.
And I think all of his orifices should have membrane guards. Like he should have.
Yes.
Yeah, I think nose, eyes, ears, mouth.
Wait, so what is a membrane guard now? Like, is
The
it
flame,
supposed to be
it
like
was
a
stop-
flap?
Yes, exactly.
This is
He
disgusting.
already talked about it.
Yeah, but
he
remember?
didn't
It was
really
go
like
over it. He just-
it was like a
The
lid.
sphincter flap also. Man, you don't
A
want to get that
lid.
bit hot. You have everything there.
So you're just pretty much putting corks in everything.
All the holes.
Corks in every hole.
They're not
You
corks.
got a
plug
hole,
'em.
we're gonna cork
They're
it.
flaps.
We're gonna plug you.
They're membrane flaps.
right.
And that's, I
Okay.
mean, that's in nature. That there are a lot of animals that have membranous kind of protection.
Well, is that what our
Yeah.
eyelids are?
Some ways, yes, but there are. I think. Is it alligators? I'm trying to think of so many aquatic animals that are amphibious. When they go into, when they actually go into water, they have another membrane that will cover their
Well, like
not their eyelids,
stomata
but- right.
in plants, right? Stomata are a great
And
example.
stomata are for gas exchange, and so
Yeah.
they allow gas exchange between the environment. So maybe Johnny has some stomata. And he
Yeah.
can have some gas exchange. Johnny stomata.
And the
hanging out
gas
with-
exchange.
Oh my!
Look out for that gas exchange.
Well, that explains the heat.
Things bringing the heat.
Oh, boy.
But yeah, I think that would be the way. Now, if flying is totally, I don't know, I got nothing for that.
I got nothing for flying.
you would
I mean,
have
I think we've
unless
already
we
solved
got
the
gas
flying part.
exchange propulsion.
It's
Yeah,
just shooting it
propulsion.
down because you guys have glands now.
shooting down.
He's
Just like a
shooting out
whoopee
the
cushion.
flame.
Yeah, but you
He's
gotta.
shooting out the
It's just,
flame and
you
it's
also
shooting
have
him
to
up.
generate enough for lift. So you just can't shoot like a little like to set you on fire. I just need to shoot a little flame at you and you'll go.
But
up
he
in
doesn't
flame.
just web it out. It's
Yeah, he shoots it out like his hands.
yeah, which is
He
what
could have glands in his hands.
Man, that's how
Yeah.
he takes off.
All right,
Hand glands.
Yeah, but he's applying some propulsion, right? So you're generating force to push to give you lift. And he has boots. He has like the propulsions on his boots. And so he lifts off
he's
with
got
the
the
rocket
propulsions
shoes.
on his feet too.
That's what I said. His
He
boots.
stands on
I
his
was talking about Johnny.
gland hands.
Oh, Johnny.
Yeah.
So he has glands in his feet.
I mean, I'd assume so.
He has feet glands.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about that. I guess if he has specialized skin, he could shoot. I mean, he could have glands all over the place. You're right.
He
Yeah,
is a gland.
We gave him a new layer of skin.
Gland
Yeah.
man.
That's why his skin looks
Ew.
so good. Maybe that's why his skin looks so good. He looks so youthful.
Oh yeah,
He's
glow
a-
up.
But now he's
Yeah.
just gonna be
He's
hairless.
just hairless.
Beautiful
with
skin,
Beautiful
but
skin, though.
bare.
Your skin is glowing.
yeah,
What kind of jelly do you apply to your skin?
because it's on fire.
And so yeah, so then I had you asked about. I think you asked about the caloric intake.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
If we go with this whole process where you're, I mean, all sorts of stuff, this new skin regeneration, this jelly, whatever it's made out of, maybe something like aloe vera kind of product in there that's very insulating. Yeah, I mean, you're probably just base metabolism. You're 10, 20,000. I think if you're in action,
Even excurting all the goos.
going, I think if you're I think that's just chilling. I think it's almost like Wolverine level that this might be
Wow.
50,000. I mean, the cellular regeneration, the the
Yeah.
metabolism. You might need increased hemoglobin for oxygen,
Yeah.
as we talked about, so you don't suffocate as you're flaming on and depleting oxygen. I do think that you would, I think you would burn some significant calories in this
Burn.
process.
No pun intended.
So yes, but yeah, so I'm on a high end, 50, 100K per minutes of flaming on.
Just-
Like I think you're
Russian eggs
Yeah.
all day.
I think you're just going to be chewing through calories. Big Macs galore.
Oh my.
Just line them up. But they're fantastic for. They're pretty wealthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I mean, they can
that's why
afford
they
it.
didn't need to go to trial. I mean, that's why they were doing unsanctioned space exploration that led to this all. This whole catastrophe.
Because scientists are just normally
Yeah, that's
wealthy.
what-
We're
We're
just
just rolling in it. That's right. We're gonna
Hanging
take,
out
We're planning
with extremophiles.
with extremophiles. We're gonna go some unsanctioned space odyssey.
I'm down.
Oh yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm
Let's
in.
get some superpowers.
I just need my little degree.
A
Yeah,
little
Just your
degree.
honorarium and a
Honorarium.
vial of LSD.
Yep. I'm in.
That's it.
That's it.
Let's go.
Is that how we're going to get to space? Bunch of
That's how we're getting
LSD.
this-
Field research.
You'll get somewhere.
My car will turn into a spacecraft.
Here I go again. Yeah. So cool. I think we did it. I think we pulled Johnny a
I
little
don't know
closer
what we
to.
did, but
I mean, I think we've completely made
Johnny's
him.
Still money. And yes.
all right.
All right.
Yeah. I
Well,
think
thanks you all. It was
Yeah.
a treat to be on here as always. I hope to get a green jacket on my third appearance. So
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you get something.
You're going to be on for season
I'll
3,
get
right?
something.
Season
You're gonna
3, yeah.
get an
We're gonna
honorary
get you
degree.
superpowers, man. We're gonna get you.
Oh
some,
yeah, awesome.
And a nice
Triforce.
yeah, some oozing glands. That's it.
May we all have oozing glands.
Oh, no.
All right.
On that note, you have me, Joe.
You got Nick.
You got Nick.
Georgia.
Got Georgia, and
And David.
we got David. Still there. He already said bye, but he said bye.
Yeah, but I'm still here.
You are still here.
Yeah.
So we didn't cut you off. Bye. Gee. We don't do that to the guests. We let it ride out. And did we?
I think we set some holes of flame.
We went
All
down
right.
some hot
Hole.
cold.
I will actually leave now.
We'll see you later.
Thanks,
See you,
everyone.
everyone. Stay
Bye-bye.
safe out there. Love y'all.